So thank you. Thanks everyone for showing up. Looks like we got standing room only. That's a great thing. I think it's because a lot of us have mobile on our minds. It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and it's a lot going on. What I want to do today is talk a little bit about the background, some of the things that brought us here, and some of the pain that we STM publishers have been feeling over the years in this new media electronic publishing space. And I do want to follow up on something that Lori had said. I'd like a show of hands who has a smartphone with them right now. Right. Now keep your hands up if you also have a tablet in your possession on this trip. Okay, and keep your hands up if you also have a laptop. Okay, so I mean, you start to get a sense of what's going on. I mean, I'm in the medical space, and so we're monitoring what physicians and residents are doing, but it's everywhere. You know, and we'll talk about it. I've got a slide about this, kind of interesting. In any event, before I get started, I just want to shout out to the SSP that there's an app for that, and it works. It's great. Not that long ago, this would have been a very expensive, prohibitive proposition to create an app for your conference. And these days, it's, I don't want to call it cookie cutter, but it's about that easy. And everyone's got the phone, they can use this thing, it works, and it just makes life a little better and more efficient for us. So I want to talk about mobile. For a very long time, we've been developing mobile content products. We call them books and journals. And that worked very well for a really long time. But obviously we're talking about a technology mobile solution today. And so I wanted to ask the question before starting all this, why is it that STM publishers tend to have so much anxiety around developing electronic media? Because I mean, I don't want to show of hands right now, but who's felt anxiety around, all the software stuff and all the various things that we've been doing? The answer is pretty much everybody, and if you didn't, you weren't paying attention, because it's crazy stuff and it's constantly moving. And so, if I could be so bold, I would say that the answer is that we have been there, we have done that repeatedly. The cheese keeps moving, and it's maddening. So I'm going to look at two evolutionary tracks just for fun to kind of get us up to speed. So let's talk about the phone. There was a time where if you wanted to use the phone, you had to go to the phone in your house. That's where the phone was, and that's where you used the phone. Eventually, the phone booths began to pop up, and so if you were out and about, you had a convenient way where you could place a call. At one point, the Army guys figured out how to send and receive calls from the field, and that was kind of a breakthrough. And then from that point, it was possible for a rich guy to make a call from the beach to give Betty Boy his wake-up call. And so, that's all good. But let's look at the other track. So concurrently, the Betty Boy call happened in the 80s. That's when the big brick of a cell phone was available. At the same time, you have the advent of video, which is a great thing for STM. We've got motion studies, we've got interviews, we've got all these different interactive learning things that we want to do, and the video was great. You could just pop it and work. You had the VHS versus beta wars, which complicated things. Then later in the 80s, you had the era of the disc. You had the big laser discs that had their moment in the sun and were a breakthrough in a number of areas. And then it led to the CD-ROM. We all began to cram all text products onto a CD. You could pop it in your computer and you had rudimentary search. It really changed things. At a certain point, you had DVDs and DVD-ROMs and all of that, and essentially you could just cram more stuff onto these discs. But it was a broadband media in the sense that you could deliver video, you could deliver a lot of interactive materials. So in the mid-90s, you had the web. You had the advent of the web. Mark Andreessen and a bunch of other clever guys came up with a browser for the World Wide Web, which Al Gore had conveniently invented for us. And so we had his compact computers. This is their website from 1996. This stuff was extremely rudimentary in those days, but we all needed a website, we thought. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know what we were supposed to do with it. I was at Mosby at the time, and you could look up the TLCs of our journals and then call our 800 number if you wanted to subscribe. But that's kind of the point of the whole evolutionary track, is that it was a marketing tool at first, but we still had our 800 number. And so you're constantly kind of shifting and evolving. So now you've got discs out there concurrently with the websites. We developed a series of web-enabled CDs that allowed you to deliver broadband video from the CD, because you still had dial-up modems for the web. So you could deliver text, which you could upgrade or update and move around a bit, but the video you would have on the CD, and it worked for a while. So then we started getting to something that was mobile, the PD or the Palm in this case. And you had some movers in the medical market like Hippocrates, where you had a free database, drug database. And within a handful of years, you had over 200,000 American physicians using a Palm for drug lookup. And then this other phenomenon occurred where people are saying, okay, well, it helps me look up drugs, but what else can this thing do? And so pretty soon, you got your contacts in there and on and on. And then the BlackBerry, and so the BlackBerry was kind of a breakthrough product as well that I dare say most everybody in this room had a BlackBerry, and I would also dare say that when it was time to upgrade, nobody got a BlackBerry again. And there are reasons for that, and it was not, one of the things that we know is there's not a lot of brand loyalty out there. It's much more about, I need this thing that works for me and what I do. And it stopped working for me because I want to surf the web. But in any event, we now have kind of had this collision. The new media, electronic publishing, has merged with the phone world, and so now we've got something else. So January 9, 2007, something very extraordinary happened. The iPhone was launched and introduced by Steve Jobs. And a couple of things happened the very next day. One was that people were scrambling to get this thing. It was a breakthrough. Touch screen, all these different things. It was sexy. It had that cool factor that people were looking for. I could surf the web. It had all these things. But another thing that happened the next day is that Google, which owned the Android operating system and had been working on an Android-based smartphone for about 2 years, scrapped what they were doing. They knew that Apple was working on something, but they had no idea how cool it would be. And Eric Schmidt had said, I never got the feeling that we should scrap what we were doing, that the iPhone meant game over, but a bar had been set. And whatever we decided to launch, we wanted to make sure that we cleared that bar. And it's a very important takeaway message in this space, that whether it's a website or a mobile app or whatever, if you see something that, oh wow, this one did this, you kind of expect everything to be that cool going forward. And so this bar being raised, this bar being set is something real in this space. So Google had acquired the Android operating system in 2007. This was the prototype that they were working on at the time. They called it Sooner. And it was very much like a BlackBerry. It did not have the touch screen. It had the physical QWERTY keyboard. And this is what they bagged in favor of eventually, but it was 20 months after the iPhone launch that HTC in October 2008 came out with the first Android OS-based smartphone. This was called the HTC Dream. But Mr. Jobs wasn't sleeping. He came out with the tablet in the iPad in January of 2010. And this is just from my perspective, but I think this was really the game changer. I think this is when everything just began to really shift into the mobile space in a way that it hadn't in the videos or in the CDs or just the web. There was something about the iPad that really changed things. It was an easy reading platform. You could watch video, you could surf the web, you could check your email. It had all this stuff. And it did it well, it did it easily, and it caught on. In response, the Samsung Galaxy Tab was released in September 2010 in response to the iPad, and a couple months later at the Consumer Electronics Show in January 2011, no less than 80 new tablets, all Android OS based, were introduced. 2 months later, in March 2011, iPad 2 came out. And it beat a lot of the Android tablet developers to the market. And a lot of them just gave up. I don't know if you remember those days, but there were a lot of companies that washed out and others that had to kill product lines because they just couldn't compete on cost and quality and functionality with the iPad. It was a very interesting time. Now, needless to say, and we all know this, there has been frenzied innovation and competition ever since. And so we fast forward to today. It's May 2014, and we have two very solid, established platforms. You've got the Android OS with phones and tablets. You've got the Apple iOS with phones and tablets. And I would dare say that of the people with phones and tablets in the room, the vast majority have either iOS or Android OS. I noticed these are just kind of one of these weird cosmic things, but the two best-selling phones in the world today are the iPhone 5S and the Galaxy S5. It's kind of this, probably means nothing, but stuff like that scares me sometimes. Larry talked about, I found a slide on Wikipedia and I just had to show it. It has an entry that shows the number of phones by country. These are the top 20 countries. And if you look at the phones per 100 citizens, you've got this amazing number. We're really at that point now in the world, not just in Western countries, but in the world, it's like a one-to-one thing where almost everybody has a phone, or there's a phone for everybody is another way of putting it. Russia has a lot more phones than everybody else. I don't know why, but I don't know. Maybe. But I thought this was interesting because this really is a phenomenon when you think about installed base. We're always kind of doing our research and, well, how many CD-ROM drives are on, installed in computers today? Do we really have a CD-ROM market? Well, you've got a smartphone market. There's just no other way of looking at it. But what else is on the horizon? We can't be complacent. Google Glass is this amazing thing. At Mass General and Beth Israel here in town, they're experimenting with this right now. So you've got your smartphone and you're wirelessly communicating with this spectacle. And so when I look at this, I think on the one hand, this is really interesting, but I'm also thinking, oh, geez, here we go. New interface design, new use cases, new challenges. It's always moving. One other example, just to scare us all, there's a ton of activity in the big data area. What does that have to do with mobile? When you think about it for a second, there are projects out there that are going to feed your mobile device with material that is coming from this monstrously powerful computer and computing environment. They're going to be crunching data in real time for the mobile user in ways that we can't even imagine in this room today. So, yeah, we're going to talk about mobile development in the markets that we have right now, which is as it should be. But there's always something on the horizon. There's always a next generation. And I think that's really the point I'm trying to make, is that we can watch this evolution, but we're never really going to be there yet. We're just here right now. It's on to the next thing. So I want to switch a little bit into our world of medical. This is a paper that came out back in '84. Actually, it was at the Association of American Medical Colleges did this report. And it basically said there's all this technology coming out on the computer database side, on the video side. 3D graphics, computer animation was coming out in those days. And the gist of it was physicians are not going to be able to keep up anymore with the literature. They're not going to be able to read it all, retain it all. But they need to be able to find it. And so that really was the takeaway. Learn how to use the technology, learn how to find the content that you need. And so I guess metaphorically we're moving away from the world of Marcus Welby to the world of Dr. McCoy. And in a very real sense, that is what's happening. And so what do we have today? So to everybody in the room with your devices, Hippocrates did a study last year, and they call clinicians who are routinely using your phone, your tablet, and your laptop interchangeably back and forth throughout the day. They're digital omnivores. We're pretty much all digital omnivores. Our market is pretty much made up of digital omnivores today, whether you're in medicine or another area. We've come to rely on these tools. It's more efficient for us. We get work done better. We're more connected. We're working harder. We're working more probably, but there's no putting that genie back in the bottle. So I wanted to end up on a couple of slides here that I think are really good takeaways for anybody, medicine or otherwise. This digital maturity model, and it goes by a couple of different names, is something that has emerged quite a bit lately. And interestingly, it's coming from the world of the CTO and the CIO of the organizations. These guys used to be the geeks in the back room who just kept your computers going and made sure your email worked. But now they're at the very center of your digital strategy. First of all, it is a given that you don't have an individual mobile strategy anymore. What you have is an integrated web mobile experience for your users. And you have to start from there, and you have to understand and accept that as a premise to move forward, or you're going to be in trouble. People are moving back and forth from their laptop or desktop to a mobile device interchangeably all day, and if they don't get the same experience, they're bugged. So if you go to your favorite search engine and just search for digital maturity model, and you'll find a lot of material on this topic. These are the 8 major components of your digital strategy that you have to not only check the box, but be good at. And it is very much about the comprehensive solution that allows you to, given the amount of time we have, I'm not going to go into all these in detail, but you can search this stuff. In fact, I'll tell you that if you're interested in this, there's an article. It's a website called searchcio.com. And the article is called Move Like Jagger to Nail Down a Digital Strategy. And it's written for the CIO, the CTO, but it's basically how do I work cross-functionally across my organization to develop the digital strategy that is going to move us forward, that's going to meet the needs of our users. And there's a lot here, and I want to make sure the slide is up here for people because this is kind of where the bar has been set. These are 8 things you better be good at, you better be talking about. It's something that just has to be on the radar of the people who are making decisions in your organization. Here's the other thought I want to make sure that people understand. Today, we have to think like a .com. .com is not some strange thing over there, and it's more than just having a website. We all have websites. We all have mobile. The point is that we now have this huge interconnected environment where we are able to leverage the technology to do new things. So this virtuous circle is very simple. You're adding value to the thing that you're offering, which is going to drive traffic to this thing you're offering, and you're monetizing that traffic. Now, in the medical publishing world, we've got memberships, in our case with our society. You have subscriptions, you've got pay-per-view, you've got advertising, you've got sponsored access, and that's about it. You might have some transaction-based stuff, but when you can get to the point that you know the demographics of the people coming into your websites, whether it's mobile or the desktop, that you can couple with volume, you're going to attract a different kind of partner.com that allows you to do a number of new things that go beyond these traditional models. So what are we doing? So at the American Academy of Neurology, we have neurology and 2 other peer-reviewed neurology-oriented journals. We have a bi-weekly news tabloid. We have a patient-facing news magazine that comes out every other month. And we have a CME vehicle called Continuum that comes out bi-monthly. We're all about neurology. This is what we do, and that's our mission. So when you get back to the concept of the next generation, having to plan for the next generation, we are conducting a lot of research at the moment. We're in partnership with Lippincott, who's been very generous in helping us do this research so that we can understand what really are best practices today in mobile publishing. In interactive learning, in search is critical. In open access, in PDE transitioning, there are all sorts of issues related to that. Okay? And then, as I was mentioning, there are a lot of new web models out there that we need to get smart on, and this is part of the Think Like a .com thing. So at the moment, there are 4 major things we're involved in. We're committed to mobile friendly. When it gets to the question of native apps versus device neutral mobile web, we're going to do both. We know people prefer apps, but we also know that as device-neutral, mobile-optimized sites become better and more prevalent, that you're going to see a lot more traffic on those sites, and they're not as related to that. So we've got a lot of material on various platforms. We need single sign-on to go between all of them seamlessly, so people don't have to continue to log in. It's imperative. And then semantic search. We're really getting to the enhanced content discovery, and because there are new things you can do once you're working in that space. And then finally, we already have a database of profiles of our members that we're able to leverage in a semantic search environment to personalize their experience. Now, it's nice for us because we have society members, and when they log in, we know who they are. That's not always the case. Of course, a lot of times you've got people coming in from institutional IP, you have no idea who they are, and you don't know how to incentivize them to give you their personal information. It's a challenge, and I'm not going to try and tackle that today. So that's my take on mobile, and thank you very much.